Hello, today we're looking at the Cyclops, which is only really relevant when you have one eye. No, that wasn't funny. When you have a Fryette power station and an amp and a preamp. But if you're that one out of... well, it should be 1 out of 100. But if you're that 1 out of X amount of people, then watch me take it out of the box. Okay, there we are. That's it. That's not a complicated product. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play some dulcet tones and you're going to look at it in detail. And here we are. So, what the crap is the Cyclops by Fryette? Now, if you have the willingness to learn a bit about routing and make your setup a bit more complex, but if you have a Fryette power station and an amp and a preamp and you want to connect both at the same time, then the Cyclops is for you. Let me explain. So there were people who have that and they wanted that, and that's why Fryette made it. So you can put an amp into the power station. You can suck all its power up and then make it loud again with the power station's tubes, because it is a tube power amp. Now that's great as an attenuator because, let me explain very quickly. An amp needs to see a cab to react to the speaker the way that it would react to a speaker. When you're putting it into a load box, it usually doesn't. That is why we have a reactive load, which over here, with these tiny little fiddly bits, we can tune. Right now I've got it on edge for a more upper end, and then on warm for warm. So the amp is exactly seeing what it wants to see, which is a kind of a cab, the reactive load. But the cab then usually from the load box sees no tubes. So the cab doesn't actually react the way it's supposed to react. We always forget about that. Now that is fixed with the power station because the cab is being amplified by, in this case, 50 watts of, I'm going to say 6L6, I don't know, tubes. And the cab again sees tubes, voila, and we have the sound that we want, which is an amazing sound. There's also the 100-watt version, and then you can actually switch between the two different volumes. That's the one big difference, and also a foot switch, I think, in the back. The power station also has a line in, so you don't need to go power amp power speaker cable into it and attenuate it. You can really just go in with a Helix, which I've shown, or something like the Friedman IRD or IRX or any IR or whatever, any kind of preamp, and use this as a power amp. So if you need a power amp to power by one of the best companies in the world that makes power amps, that's not what I say, that's what the industry says, then the power station is also your best friend. But you could only either do that or do that. What if you wanted on stage to do both? What if you wanted to pull down your plexi to manageable volumes? In this case, this SV20H is damn loud in the room. It would kill me. And I have it, if you can see, cranked. And that means it would be way too loud, but it's exactly where I want it sound-wise. So I'm bringing it down and amplifying it back with the power station. And with this V30 loaded cab, that sounds like so. Kinda neat. And you heard delay from this TC Electronic 2290p. because that's in the effects loop of the power station. Now you can crank your non-master volume amp, get it to sound perfect, and put effects behind it in the power station, which then amplifies that signal, that line signal, plus the effects in its own power amp, tube power amp into the cab. Nice. I also have a pentatone gate from Ibanez on there because it can reduce some noise post amp. Okay, what if you wanted to use this preamp? Well, you would plug it into the line in of the power station. I don't know what I'm playing. What was that? What am I doing? There's also effect. Why? Well, because this is going to the power station, and the power station has the effect applied to anything that's going through it. So I've got the delay on here, I've got the delay on here. How awesome! And now, with the foot switch, do we have this camera? There's a foot switch right there. Leslie says it's not focused. I'm gonna say, maybe we focus it. Leslie's like, yeah, I don't know, looks fine to me. It's a Fryette 2-button foot switch from the Deliverance, but any 1-button foot switch will do, or a 2-button foot switch, and then this doesn't do anything. So you just need a 1-button foot switch, not included. Right here, I'm switching between the two different things. And you can see that, of course, on the Cyclops. And you make sure that the volumes are equal by tweaking in the back the line out, line in, the line. There's a little pot. You'll see that. I'm doing all of this with extremely manageable volume in the room. I'm not killing myself because the power station is at, you know, very, very low. So right here we add that clean channel from the IRD. So the effect applies to both, the gate applies to both, and once you wire it up, it is super simple. You can also do extremely nice shootouts between an amp and a preamp with this setup. I mean, that's the only setup that I can think of where I can do that, which is probably why I'm not giving back the Cyclops, because when I ever have to do that, I now have a setup where I can do that. I'm excited. You could, of course, also switch right here, but you can't because I have the foot switch connected. So if you're in a studio situation, that would be rather simple. If you have the Power Station 100, you could even have a foot switch to turn the effect on and off. But the biggest question for you is, how complicated is it to set that up? It's a bit complicated. Let me show you. Follow me on all of this. It's not so easy. So let's take a peek behind this rig and really try to follow me. We're going to go, well, piece of gear by piece of gear. So the amp, you know, the SV20H. We are connecting. I know it looks daunting, but follow me. We're connecting with speaker out 16 ohm, which means on the power station right here, we are doing 16 ohm from the amp and 16 ohm to the cab because the cab is 16 ohm. Okay. So this cable out is going to amp in, and we're going to talk about labeling could be better in a sec. Speaker out from the power station, of course amplified by its own tube power amp, into the speaker. So very simple. The power station is simply in the chain when it comes to the actual powered speaker thingy cable. Okay. Then we have the Cyclops, which is not in the speaker power chain at all. Input, you go in with your guitar because it of course switches that signal to either the amp or the preamp. Here it says preamp in. I wish it said to preamp in because that would be quite a bit clearer. But that's what it means, to preamp in. So we're going to take a short, in this case, evidence audio cable. And we're going to go to our preamp in, which is the IRD. Preamp in right there. On the IRD, we're taking the send, which is simply just, the preamp. So post preamp into preamp out. And that's a cable from D'Addario. I wish it said from preamp out. It would be much clearer, Mr. Fryette. So, amp input doesn't mean it's coming from the amp, it means it's going to amp input. So that is now going to the amp. Over here. Very unelegantly, you have got this cable. Wait, I could probably put this around the corner here. Yep, okay. Now, the Cyclops can switch between this input between going to the preamp or going to the amp. It's a simple A-B switch. But also, of course, taking the signal from the preamp back. And the amp already is in the power station because, it's connected with the speaker cables. And now we got from the power station line out, which is over here at the bottom there. Where is it? There. Line out. And to power station line in, which is on top of here. And now we got that line out and line in connected, and the preamp can, when switched to it, go to the power station's power amp. Also, to make it more complicated, we have the 2290p from TC Electronic connected to the FX loop. Right there. Send, return, very simple. Send, return. So, meaning the preamp, IRD, is connected to preamp in, preamp out. The amp is connected to the power station via the speaker cable. Makes sense, we want it attenuated. And the guitar signal is going from the Cyclops to the amp. And then you're also looping in your line in and line out. There's also a preamp level, which could be very important. And a ground lift, which in this case we need because we got some noise issues. If your amp is not balanced in terms of level with your preamp, what you do is adjust the line level right there, which I had to do because the amp was louder than the preamp. And now back to me. So yes, in that setup, I did not have the gate connected. Right now, the gate is simply connected in line with the delay. It's in front of the delay. And I've got the guitar going through the trigger input of the gate as well. Video on the gate coming. It's behind the Cyclops there. So yeah, it's a fairly simple tool. It is not cost prohibitive. I don't know exactly what the price is, but what they told me, MSRP, whatever, it's going to be totally fine for someone that needs that situation. So yeah, Cyclops, Fryette. The only thing I would criticize is the labeling on the jacks, because it says amp in. Yes, of course. It makes 100% sense that that goes to your amp in. Well, or from your amp in. Right? But amp in, or let's say preamp in, does it go into the preamp or does it actually come from the preamp? The preamp goes in. I know, maybe I'm nitpicking, but I'm thinking it should just say to preamp in, because then you know it is an output. And it should say from something, or to amp in, to preamp in, from preamp out. Not preamp out, because that could mean it goes out to the preamp. It could mean that. It shouldn't. All I'm saying is, if you add from and to, it makes it a non-guessing game. I had to guess a bit. Okay? Of course, there's a manual that I didn't have at the point when I wired this up. That's my only gripe. The labeling on the thing could make it idiot-proof. This idiot had to think for a second. That's really all that it is. And now we're gonna go switch this to channel 2. Crank this up, boost the shit out of it, crank the mids, and have some fun. Amp. Preamp. This guitar, by the way, is a Hackstrom Super Sweet, and it is absolutely super sweet. It is phenomenally good for under $1,000. It's ridiculously good as a guitar, and there will be a video on the channel. Thank you, Fryette, for commissioning this video, and animals at the end, and links below use now animals.